What's going on, guys? This is Buddy coming back at you with a part 2 video. I got cut a little short on my last video. I was talking about why you don't go buy your test kits to do a water change. And like I was saying, when you're doing a water change, you're replacing the old water with new water that's rich in minerals and things like that the corals are going to use to grow their calcium-based structures, their skeleton structure, their flesh, and things like that. So really keep that in mind, guys, when you do your water changes. It's really, I do mine once a week. I'm not saying you have to do a water change once a week. I just find it easier to do it once a week. And, for me, it's easier to do once a week. I do 10 gallons a week. I could get away with a 5-gallon pail once a week. But, like I said, I like to do a 10-gallon water change once a week, And also, guys, keep in mind, always use reverse osmosis water, RODI water, always. Don't ever use tap water with the dechlorinator, guys. You're doing your tank, your livestock, your fish, everything. You're doing a disservice when you do that, guys, really. So like I said, this is a part 2 video. If you guys have any comments, concerns, questions, post them. Let me know. You want me to hear your thoughts? You have no problem answering any questions or anything like that. Like I said, I've been in this hobby 12 years. I know a lot about this hobby. This is my passion. It's not only my hobby, it's my passion. I really love salt water. I'm going to be installing dosing pumps on this tank, and I'm going to be hard plumbing it, so I'll walk you guys through that and show you how I'm going to go about doing that. I'm going to be setting up a 75-gallon aquarium, top to bottom, and I'll go through that with you guys. On that tank, I'll be using 100% Fiji dry rock that I'll order from Bulk Reef Supply, and I'll be using obviously dead sand, dried sand. You could use the Fiji live sand. It really doesn't matter when it comes to that, in my opinion. The live rock is what it's going to matter. I know people say, oh, buy good quality live rock. Listen, everybody out there is going to tell you they're selling you good quality live rock. There's no saying whether there's parasites in there that they don't know of. You know what I mean? Always start a tank with 100% dead rock. When it comes to the sand, if you want to buy live sand, that's fine. It makes no difference. It's just I can get dead sand basically for a lot cheaper than the live sand, and it's going to grow its own population. It's going to grow its own population of bacteria and microfauna and stuff like that. And that's really all live sand is. It's housing beneficial bacteria, and when you add it to the tank and it gets up to temperature, basically that bacteria it's dormant until it reaches temperature, and then the bacteria becomes active and starts to multiply. When I start a tank up, I use Spiral to help to boost the beneficial bacteria in the aquarium. I do that probably, I want to say, 5 days after I start it. I'll drop some of that in there, and then I always, since I have a tank already going and I know my aquarium is pest free, I will grab a piece of live rock out of the sump and set it in there. Once I see the diatom bloom, I will take a piece of live rock and set it in the aquarium from my sump to help the critters and everything start to really populate within the aquarium. I don't do any testing. A lot of guys will say wait for the spikes to come up and down, and yeah, absolutely. That's a good rule of thumb for reefers. Basically what I do, I just let it cycle 6 weeks. I don't touch the tank for 6 weeks. And that's just the way I do it. I have my lights on. I do my cycles with the lights, like as if I'm going to have it all set up the way it's going to be. I do my cycles, and I just let it go for 6 weeks. I don't bother testing. I don't bother doing anything like that. I always install an auto top-off system. You can't see it right now, but I have the JBJ auto top-off. Every aquarium, I always set that up from day one. I set up an auto top-off system, and I just let it cycle. 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, I'll do a 20% water change. Then after I do that water change, I'll start putting in my cleanup crew. I'll introduce my cleanup crew. A week after I introduce my cleanup crew, I add my first fish. And then about 2 weeks after I add my first fish, I'll add more fish. But after I add the first fish, then I will start adding some easier to maintain corals. I'll start my Zoa gardens. I'll start adding some Zoa frags in there. Start adding some LPS corals. I want to say about 3 months after the system's up and running is when I start dropping SBS pieces in there. After I start adding my livestock, though, is when we'll start testing on a regular and getting everything dialed in properly for that tank. And then as I add corals, I'll make the adjustments, the necessary adjustments that are needed, you know. And from that point on, once I do that 20% water change that first time, after that, it's 10% a week. I do a 10% water change every week after that, and I've always done my tanks like that. Like I said, I've been in this hobby for 12 years, and that's what's kept me successful. I start running a phosphate reactor, I want to say about 2.5 months after the aquarium setup. I'll start introducing GFO to the system. Very small amounts of it, because you're not going to need a whole lot. Obviously, you don't have a lot of livestock in there at that point. So I do carbon. I start running right after I do that 20% water change. I add the carbon to the system, and then I'll start introducing about a 1/4 cup of GFO, and then as the livestock, I get more livestock and corals in there, I'll slowly increase that the amount of GFO. In this hobby, you know, consistency is the key. Being consistent with everything, you know, and that's consistent water parameters. You know, being consistent on your feedings, being consistent on your maintenance, and that goes right down the line with water changes, everything. Consistency is the key to being successful in this hobby, guys. Just figure out a schedule that's going to work for you and be consistent with it. If you want to do water changes every 2 weeks, and you decide to do them on Sundays, every Sunday do that water change. Every 2 weeks. Be consistent. Consistency is the key, and that goes right down to dosing, you know, dosing your supplements and everything. Consistency, guys, and you'll be successful in this hobby. You know, just keep that in mind, guys. Consistency is the key with everything. And don't add too much too fast. Keep in mind, this hobby takes time. You know, it really does. It takes time. You know, it's a patient man's game. You know, and I'm not very patient. But you know, learn patience. Keep your expectations in check. If you want to add something new to the system, or what I mean by that, if you want to add, say you want to add bioballs to this, or bioballs. Say you want to add oh wow, I can't even think at the moment. I'll get back to you on that, guys. I don't know. I just completely drew a blank. I don't know. I completely drew a blank. But what I'm saying is basically, when you're starting to add equipment to the system, you know, and new types of filtration to the system, you know, do it slowly. Start out slowly. Don't just you're going to start adding GFO. You know, start out slow. You know, I always start out slow. You know, if they recommend a cup, I do a 1/2 cup, and then I work up to a cup. You know, I don't think introducing anything too fast is a good way to go. You know, you don't want to add too much carbon. You know, you don't want to have a tank where you don't run carbon, then all of a sudden start running 2 cups of carbon on the system out of nowhere. You know, that could shock the corals and the inhabitants within the tank. So start out slow. You know, and that's just where that goes with anything. I think start out slow, work your way up, take your time, be patient, and be consistent. You know, be consistent to this in this hobby, and you'll have great results, and you'll have a great tank. You guys have any comments, concerns, thoughts, post them. You know, and I can get more in depth and more in detail by what I mean. It takes me so long to upload these videos. I don't want to stretch them out too long. But yeah, let me touch real fast. This gonorrhea I got from a friend who was dying. I'm bringing it back to life. I know guys are going to see that on YouTube and go, "Oh, the thing is dying." I'm bringing it back to life, and it's starting to do really well. It's starting to thrive really well. I feed it cyclopeas and phytoplankton, and as you can see, I have it off to the side to where it's not getting too much light. It doesn't need to be hammered by light, and it's thriving very well. All right, guys. For instance, like if you're going to start carbon dosing, you know, start out slow. You know, work your way up. You don't just start hammering. You know, start carbon dosing out of nowhere is a crazy amount. You want to work your way up slow, obviously. You know. And anybody that's been in the hobby for a while knows that. You know, I'm really touching on this for newer reefers, guys that are just getting into the hobby. You know, don't just start out. You know, start out at the recommended amount. Start out a 1/4 of the recommended amount and work your way up. You know, and really, guys, you know, take your time, be patient, and you'll be successful. All right, guys. So this is a part 2 video. I got cut short on my last one. You guys have any comments, concerns, or anything like that, like I said, post them, let me know. Alright guys, happy reefing, man. Have a good one.